You made a kid with another man, you cheater. You bastard.
My husband, red-faced, spat at me and cursed at me.
I want a divorce right now, and I want you both out of this house.
I was so disgusted by the loudness and violence of his voice that I closed my eyes. I had been at loggerheads with my in-laws for some time, but I had never imagined that he could be so foul and angry. And what he said was not true. I would never cheat on him. The reason for this situation was the results of our daughter's blood test. My husband and I both have type O blood, and our child could only be type O. But for some reason, our daughter's blood type was type A. As soon as my husband heard about it, his blood turned to blood. He assumed that I had cheated on him, and he unilaterally accused me of cheating. There was no way I could have been unfaithful. I want to find out why. Let's take DNA test. When I calmly retorted, he stuck out his chin and condescended to me in a pompous manner.
You'll only expose your love for men anyway. You're going to strangle yourself at best.
My husband, who apparently has no intention of changing his mind once he has made up his mind, happily offered me a lock of his own hair. 2 weeks after we received the results of the DNA test, I showed the results to my husband, who was still skeptical. The husband's eyes slowly widened as he stared at the paper, and his eyebrows, which had been raised in anger, now lowered in doubt and anxiety. No way, what's going on? I looked straight at my husband, my voice trembling, and said, without hesitation, I don't know. But you said you wanted a divorce, so I'm going to go ahead with it. I will also tell your parents about it, because they will know the truth. My name is May. I am 28 years old. I work for a trading company in the household goods industry and belong to the human resources department. I met my husband, Ken, at a drinking party organized by a friend. He is self-employed in the engineering field with his parents. I decided to marry my husband because I found his easygoing, detail-oriented personality comforting to me, as I was working in a large organization every day. Although my husband and I continued to get along well after our marriage, my parents-in-law's family was a source of great concern to me. My parents-in-law thought that a woman should join her husband's family when she becomes a bride, and I wanted to continue my own work after marriage. Are you still working? It's so disgusting for a woman to go out and dawdle. Quit your job and help us as a wife. My mother-in-law would frequently call me over to her house and complain about such things. I tried to dodge her complaints, but it was quite a stress for me to have to spend my precious days off with her. I like my job and have recently been given the responsibility of selecting new hires. I am looking forward to continuing to develop my career. The relationships in the company are good, so even though I have had some difficulties at work, I have not had any bad experiences. I want to keep my job, and not just because of the money.
You have to say something to him.
When my mother-in-law asks my husband, he was respectful, albeit dismissive. She wants to do what she's doing now, so why not? My father is still going strong, and it's not like I'm going to take over anytime soon. Let me do what I want with the family. When she hears my husband's words, my mother-in-law narrows her eyes in frustration and gives him a small tongue lashing.
You've turned into a son who talks back to me. Of course I want you to live with me. I wonder what she has told you.
My husband responded to her with a sigh of annoyance. Well, it's not like our sales will go up all at once if you help us. We'd be better off if you worked for us at your company. I'd be lying if I said that I didn't feel that they were just after my income, or that they wanted more affectionate words. However, I am grateful to my husband for protecting the lifestyle I desire. I decided to ignore my feelings and be thankful to my husband. However, after a few months, 6 months, and even a year, such exchanges would never be the same. My mother-in-law, without giving up, asked me to move in with her and resign from my job. It seems that she is really committed to this and is not willing to compromise in any way. Moreover, perhaps her frustration was so great that it was boiling in her head, and she said, "You are crazy to be so obsessed with going out to work. What are you after? A man? Yes, of course you are. You have a husband, but you're still indulging in the man you work for. Well, I don't like it. You're disgusting. She was so hysterical that she lost control of her own fantasy. It was very difficult to calm her down, and I had to manage to put her in a good mood with tea and sweets. Of course, my husband would never believe her delusions. However, he was getting fed up with my mother-in-law's frequent accusations and tantrums, and he was no longer taking my side as he used to do. Hey, if you're going to be like that, why don't you just give up? If she gets mad at you every time, it must be stressful for you, May. I'm going to take over the restaurant one day, so instead of trying to convince her, it would be faster if you quit your job and move in with her. My husband, sitting in the dining room, looks down and mumbles. When he finished, he held his head in his hands and sighed deeply. I could understand why he was in a dilemma between his mother-in-law and me. But he used to hold my shoulders, so I was shocked to find that he had let go of my hand.
Why? Why are you saying that to me?
I stopped washing the dishes and appealed to my husband in a tearful voice. You know how she is. I don't want her to keep attacking me by continuing to live the way she is now. I mean, you don't like it either, do you? You've been doing the same thing for a year now, and you still want to work? As I recall, my mother-in-law's sarcasm and verbal abuse escalated to the point where I was at my limit. But work is an important part of my life. I didn't want to give it up. And considering my mother-in-law's personality, there is a possibility that if we move in together, she will start to bully me.
Yes, but you are her son, aren't you? I want you to persuade her somehow. You said that if I wanted to do it, it would be fine, and that the income would increase because I would be working. Don't let your parents push you around. Besides, there's no guarantee that living with them will solve everything.
Tears welled up in my eyes, but on the other hand, my fists were clenched tightly and shaking. Besides feeling sadness at my husband's betrayal, I was also filled with anger. My husband slammed the newspaper down on the table and got up from his seat with a violent noise, as if irritated.
Shut up. That was a long time ago. That was a long time ago. If you stick to the same ideas, there are so many things that can go wrong. You're stubborn and selfish. Wait a minute. You just say what's convenient when it's convenient and flip-flop when it's not convenient. That's called disloyalty.
I strongly retorted to my husband, who was about to leave. In the end, the day ended with such a quarrel-like exchange. I was so exhausted that I went to bed without cleaning up. How did I end up in this situation? My mother-in-law is a problem, but the change in my husband's attitude is very painful. Once my husband leaves, I am left alone and helpless. With no one on my side, I felt very discouraged that I had to stand up for my beliefs all by myself. We had been on edge since the fight, but a few weeks later I found out I was pregnant. I had been having some bad days recently, and my coworkers were concerned, so I went to the hospital and was told that I was in the second trimester of pregnancy. My husband was happy to hear this. He was also concerned about my body during the pregnancy. If it is a boy, he will be my heir. If it is a girl, I want a pretty girl like you. You are working and taking care of the house right now, but I think this is an important time for you, so you don't have to push yourself too hard. I was touched by such kind words, but at that moment, my husband said what he did not want me to say. My husband said the last thing he wanted me to say. He said, "That's right. Why don't you take this opportunity to quit your job? I'm sure the job will be hard on your pregnant body, and it would be a good opportunity. If you move in with my parents, you can take it easy and relax while I take care of the house." At that moment, my head was boiling hot. Did he forget everything we had discussed and fought about? How could he say such a thing so easily with a smile on his face?
Don't say that. It's not a good opportunity. It's as if you're using our new baby to make me live with your in-laws. We didn't have a baby with that kind of intention, did we? I'm not going to stop working.
When I started to talk, my husband looked annoyed, as if he had been pressured. Why are you so angry with me? Why are you so mad at me? It's common for people to leave their jobs when they get pregnant, isn't it?
It is a common occurrence, but my company has a maternity leave system. I'm going to take maternity leave and come back to work after things settle down. Besides, if I quit now, I will lose all the money I earned during the leave.
My husband listened to my persuasions in a blank stare until the end of the conversation, when he suddenly reacted. Apparently, he had been pulled into the conversation about money. I wonder if it would be okay if you retire after your maternity leave is over. Then let's just take a leave of absence and think about what to do after that. He said this in a vague, indifferent tone and turned his eyes away from me. I sighed as I looked at my husband, who was staring at the TV. I had not realized before we married that he was such an opportunistic, cash-crazy man. I should be more firm from now on. A few months later, I went back to my parents' home for a home birth. I didn't want to have anything to do with my in-laws or my mother-in-law before or after the birth. When I told my parents about my mother-in-law and my husband, they were very worried about me and were even more angry than I was, especially with my husband. I don't trust people who change their minds. You should never stay with them. If you keep doing that, I think you should consider divorce. My mother must have been very angry with my husband, because she said in a low voice, while strongly handling a kitchen knife in her cooking hand. I was so pressured that even I, who had actually gotten into a big fight with him, was overwhelmed by the pressure. Thank you, but as long as my mother-in-law don't get involved, he's not a bad person. My life will change after the baby is born, so I think I'll wait and see how things go for a while. When I said this, my mother sighed with concern. It's good that you are patient, but you tend to hold things in too much. If you feel you can't do it, tell us right away, okay? Yes, I understand. A few months later, feeling my mother's strong love for me, I gave birth to a healthy baby girl. I named her Marie. After that, I continued to live with my parents, not wanting to return to a place where my in-laws were still nearby as much as possible, and finally returned home a year later when I found a daycare center and went back to work. Although my husband checked on our daughter on several occasions, we never talked about moving in together or retiring. Both my husband and I avoided the topic. My mother reminded, from now on, you will have a child and your family will grow, so please support Machika and the child well. Please support May and the child, and take good care of them, quietly applying pressure. I returned to the house where I lived with my husband, but nothing had changed. My mother-in-law kept coming over to our house to see her grandchild and kept saying, "Enough. You have no right to continue working without living with your husband's parents." My husband was quick to respond, well, I'm sure she has a lot of things to deal with in raising a child, and she'll figure it out in time. 2 years passed in the blink of an eye. My daughter has grown up remarkably, and now she can walk around freely and talk simply. I continue to work short hours while leaving my child at daycare, and I do not live with my parents-in-law. My husband has become so accustomed to my mother-in-law's verbal abuse and my persuasion that he now watches the TV and looks at me with a blank stare even when she and I are arguing. I already don't expect anything from him. I was hoping that one day I would be able to convince them on my own. Then one day, my daughter became ill. She had red rashes all over her body, and she cried out in discomfort, as if she was in pain or itching. I took an emergency day off from work and rushed to the hospital with my daughter. They said they were going to do a blood test just to be sure, so I asked for the necessary tests. They asked me what her blood type was, and when I told them I didn't know yet, the test was automatically included. I thought it was unnecessary, but the doctor said it was just in case, so I had no choice but to agree. The subsequent diagnosis revealed that the rash was atopic dermatitis, and I was prescribed special medication. I was happy to learn about the inflammation and how to deal with it, but the problem was her blood type. I am type O and my husband is also type O. Normally, we would only have children with type O blood. I was reluctant to have her blood type tested because I thought it was so obvious that it was unnecessary. Don't you think it's strange that we are both type O, but only Marie is type A? I looked down and asked, and my husband's blood turned bloodshot and he raised his voice. I was so upset that I couldn't even speak to him. I knew you were cheating on me at work. I shook my shoulders in shock at the horrifying tone of his voice. Wait, this is just a report, maybe there's some mistake in the test results.
You made a kid with another man. My mom once told me that I was obsessed with my job because I had a man outside of it, and she was right on the money. You're just pretending to be a career woman, and you're having all the fun you want with men. You're a total man-crazy woman.
My husband's face turned red and he spat at me, hurling abusive words at me. The loudness and roughness of that voice filled me with a strong sense of disgust, and I instinctively closed my eyes. It's disheartening to be misunderstood, and being spoken to in such vulgar language is shocking.
Stop it, don't talk like that. I would never cheat. You should know that I've been commuting between work and home every day. Besides, you don't trust your own wife. I don't trust you at all. These test results here are everything.
My husband shouted, slamming the test results paper aggressively. Oh, it seems like we can't communicate at all. I deeply regretted my choice of partner. I felt that keenly.
I'm not going to raise someone else's kid. I don't want to see the face of a child born to a woman who is a bastard. I want you both out of my house right now. And since you cheated on me, I'm going to charge you alimony, too.
My husband's yell echoed through the house, and our daughter, who had been sleeping in the next room, woke up and started crying. I could only imagine how uncomfortable she must be, even though her rash had not yet subsided. My husband, in spite of my heartache for my daughter, pushes his luggage on me and my daughter and tries to throw us out of the house right then and there. I quickly grab my valuables and the medicine prescribed by the hospital. Then, on the front porch, I pawed at my husband for one last thing. I can't figure it out, so I'd like to find out what's going on. I want to find out the cause of the problem because it's inexplicable. If it bothers you so much, let's do a DNA test. Upon hearing this, my husband would look down at me with a pompous look on his face, jutting out his chin.
Yeah, why don't you do it? It's only going to reveal your man-craving ways anyway. At best, you'll be strangling yourself.
My husband, who had no intention of changing his mind once he had made up his mind, gladly offered me a lock of his own hair. We were suddenly kicked out of our house and headed for my parents' house. It took 2 hours to get there, and by the time we arrived, I was already exhausted. My mother was surprised to see us and was furious when she heard what we had to say.
It's terrible. He's out of his mind to make a one-sided decision and kick you out. It is true that the blood test results are strange, but you and your husband should work together to find the cause of the problem. You should give him back to your parents.
My mother said to my daughter, whose skin was still itching, "You're in pain, but you're scared. Marie, there is nothing wrong with you." She gently applied the medicine to her skin. I took a leave of absence from work and concentrated on taking care of my daughter while my parents took care of me. At the same time, I sent my husband's hair for a DNA test and waited for the results. As long as I was not having an affair, the blood type thing was a real mystery to me. I hate to think about it, but even if my husband had been unfaithful, the child would have been born to the other woman, and this situation would not have happened. A little over 2 weeks later, I received the results of the DNA test. I slowly opened the document with my mother. I was surprised at what was written on it. Of course, Marie was definitely my husband and I's child. And it is also proven that I am type O. However, it was proven that my husband's blood type was actually type A. I went to the house from which we had been evicted to tell them this fact. I knew that I would get into trouble, so I decided to leave my daughter with her mother.
What the hell are you doing here? Damn woman.
My husband, who was at home, of course greeted me coldly, but I calmly showed him the test results. His eyes slowly widened as he stared at the paper, and his eyebrows, which had risen in anger, now lowered in doubt and anxiety. It can't be true. Why? My husband said he was a type O. Of course, there was no way he would lie about such a thing, and he had probably believed it himself until now. I looked him straight in the eye and said, without hesitation, "Let's talk about this with your parents. I am sure they will understand the truth." Surprisingly, he nodded his head. He had previously told me that in addition to his blood type, both of his parents were also type O. There could be a lie there. His body was tense and fearful of the secret of his birth, and he shrank back. He looked like a different person from the one who had verbally abused me. When we went to my parents-in-law's house together, my husband seemed to have told them about their daughter's blood type and my suspicions of infidelity, and the look my mother-in-law gave me was as cold as ice.
"Why are you with her?" My mother-in-law expressed her disgust.
With trembling hands, her husband showed her the DNA test form. "I don't have time for this. Look at this, you and Dad both said that my blood type is O. Why does it say I am type A?" My mother-in-law took it slowly and looked at it for a while, her face scrunched up. Then she led us into a back room. My mother-in-law, sitting in front of us, looks formal and silent. She seemed to have something to say, but she looked down, biting her lip as if she wanted to say something. "Is there a reason? Mom is type O, Dad is type O, so of course I'm type O. It should be that way." My husband was trying his best to act tough, but inside he seemed to be seething with anxiety, and his hands were shaking under the table. "I know, but..." Her face is as white as a doll's. Her eyebrows are painfully furrowed, and her pursed lips are wagging.
"Why don't you tell me? Tell me the truth."
My husband noticed that my mother-in-law was still not giving up her pursuit of the truth. Silence reigned for a few seconds. Then she let out a quiet sigh and slowly opened her mouth. "There's something I've been keeping quiet about, you're not actually Dad's child." I gulped at my mother-in-law's line.
"What? You're lying? What do you mean?"
My husband was, of course, greatly dismayed by this sudden admission. "When I was married to your father, I had an inadvertent affair with another man. You are the child of that affair. My husband is now 30 years old. How shocking it must be to have what you believe to be your family until this age fall apart." He was already shaking up to his shoulders. When my husband asked her, his mother-in-law looked pained. The answer was obvious from the look on her face.
"You've been hiding this from me and my father all this time."
After she said that, my husband looked as if he was about to cry and kept staring at my mother-in-law's face. My mother-in-law spilled a single tear. "It is true that I took good care of you as our child." She had cheated on her husband right after their marriage, had a child by him, and continued to live her life deceiving her family as the couple's child.
"I can't take it when you say that. So, my mom was having an affair with a type A guy? Why did you hide something so important from me?"
My husband, red around the eyes as if about to burst into tears, stood up and questioned her. "I guess," my mother-in-law muttered. She looked down and remained silent. What a surprise. How could my mother-in-law's long-standing secret be revealed by my daughter's blood type? Was it a twist of fate or God's punishment? At the very least, Mickey was definitely my husband's child. I watched my husband's with bated breath. How is this possible? I had never had my blood type tested. I have been strong since I was a child, so there was no need for me to do so. I had no choice but to believe Mom because you said I was type O. I am so sorry. At the moment, the door to the room was quietly opened. "I've heard your story." Standing there was my father-in-law, his face beyond angry and cold. He, too, had been pushing for me to move in, and had made small sarcastic remarks every time we saw each other, but I never got involved because my mother's extremism was too much in the foreground. His face, which had always been so happy about the future of his business, was now tinged with disappointment in my mother-in-law, who had kept her affair a secret.
"Hey, is it true what they say about Ken not being our child?"
My father-in-law asked my mother-in-law in a low voice.
"Oh, no. Did you hear that?"
My mother-in-law, who had intended this to be a private conversation, was now blatantly embarrassed that she had been overheard. While she was thinking of excuses, my father-in-law found the test result sheet and stared at it intently.
Are you saying that you had illicit relations with another man, and that you have continued to cheat on me until this age?
The mask of calmness that my father-in-law had put on fell away at once. This time, his face turned bright red and he yelled at my mother-in-law. "No, you can't say it like that. Ken is our precious son. We have raised him with the utmost care."
Yes, that's right. You tricked me into raising a man's child that you gave birth to, and I raised him with great care for 30 years.
With a loud bang, my father-in-law slammed the test results down on the table. My husband and I both winced. My mother-in-law could no longer stand my father-in-law's anger, and she stood up and began to talk back to him.
What? It doesn't matter if you're angry now. I don't have any contact with that person anymore, and it was 30 years ago, so you can put a statute of limitations on it, can't you? There is no statute of limitations. I didn't think you were such a bad person. I didn't think you were such a selfish woman.
My father-in-law shouted and pointed at my husband. My husband was frozen in his seat, his mouth agape at the unexpectedly huge fight between his parents-in-law.
Now that I know this, I will no longer be married to you. Divorce. You too, Ken. If you are not my child, then don't come back to my house again. Wait. You can't be serious.
After that, my husband was thrown out of the house while the parents-in-law continued to fight with each other. I left the house with my husband and went to a family restaurant to discuss divorce. I know you are not cheating on me. It was all a misunderstanding. I am sure that Marie is yours and mine. So I'm withdrawing the divorce. Why don't you just live in that house again? As expected of an opportunistic husband. I was surprised that he came up with such a convenient proposal. I replied in a nonchalant manner, feeling a bit disillusioned. Of course I don't like it. It is true that the misunderstanding was cleared up, but I cannot take back what I said once. What you said to me was too much. I really can't forgive you for speaking ill of me and Marie. I can't be married to someone who can say such things with impunity. I'm going to proceed with the divorce. Hey, wait! That's no way you say it. I gave him a cold smile as he hurriedly tried to stop me. You were right to leave your wife who wouldn't live with you, wouldn't quit her job, and wouldn't listen to the house, weren't you? At first you were on my side, but then you started to follow your mother-in-law's lead. I don't want a husband who won't support me. Let's talk about the rest through our lawyer. Goodbye. Then I quickly got up and left my husband, who was at a loss, alone in a family restaurant crowded with happy families. It was about time for me to pick up my daughter, who was waiting for me at my parents' house. My husband returned to his parents' home, but as his father-in-law had said at the time, he was not allowed to step foot in the house, and of course, he was fired from the family business. Naturally, he sent me a message saying that he had decided not to discuss his heir to the family business. I ignored the message and immediately sought out a lawyer's office to file a claim for compensation. I was able to claim $40,000 in alimony, claiming that what my husband had done constituted mental harassment. After receiving a content-certified letter from her husband, she received a complaint that she could not pay him because she did not have a job, but she responded firmly that she could not lower the amount. The husband had been resting on his laurels, believing that he would become the president of the company if he took over the family business in the future, and had not saved any money. I knew very well that he spent all the money he earned, except for living expenses, on drinking and gambling. In addition, they could no longer maintain the room they lived in together. On the other hand, my mother-in-law, who was thrown out of the house in a 60-year-old divorce when she found out about the affair, apparently managed to get in touch with her past lover and tried to run away to him. The ex-husband got in touch with the mother-in-law, joined her, and went with her to the home of the cheating boyfriend, who was her biological father. The woman and her son had not seen each other for 30 years, and were surprised and perplexed by the sudden arrival of the woman of the time and her son. And he did not remember such a long time ago. He tried to run away, saying that it was a misunderstanding and that it was too late to tell her. She caught the cheating partner and demanded a DNA test, saying that she would pay for it. The wife, who lived in the same house, found them struggling on the porch, and the three of them were questioned about what was going on. To my surprise, at that time 30 years ago, my mother-in-law's unfaithful partner was also already married, and now his wife found out about his affair and confronted him with a divorce, and they started struggling right in front of my mother-in-law and my ex-husband. My husband and I fought, and then my mother-in-law and father-in-law fought. Finally, there was a fight between my mother-in-law's unfaithful partner and his wife. The situation was so bad that it caused a big commotion all over the place. While all this was going on, I rented a new room close to my parents' house and started living with my daughter. This is because I don't want to go back to the room I used to live in with my husband, and I can't stay at my parents' house forever. My mother later said, "Your husband is a strange man, and your in-laws are all strange people. It's a good thing we divorced. From now on, let's take good care of Marie and raise her by ourselves." My mother helps me out from time to time, which is a big help. I apologized to the company for the leave, summarized what I could, and applied for a transfer to a branch office that would allow me to commute from my new location. The company was disappointed that I was leaving the head office, but accepted my transfer and I was able to return to work without incident. Just as I was about to start my new life, my mother came to my house with an angry look on her face. "Hey, will you listen to me?" Apparently not angry with me, I listened to my mother.
"Your ex-husband, of all people, came to our house. I really can't believe it at all."
My mother's eyebrows lifted as she sipped the tea I had served her. I was so sorry for him. I felt uncomfortable at his sheer pettiness, and I felt bad for my parents' house for causing him so much trouble.
"He's been asking you for help because he's unemployed and can't pay child support. When I told him that our daughter had already started a new life, he came to us with a terrible look on his faces, shaking and asking us for money. It was so bad that we immediately kicked him out."
After a brief conversation, my mother seemed refreshed and gulped down a cup of tea. "I'm sorry," she said. "I'm sorry I even bothered your mother." My mother smiled broadly at me. "It's okay. It's over now. I've threatened to call the police the next time you come over, so he won't come again." My mother patted me on the shoulder. I was so encouraged by her warmth that I burst into tears. My mother is a true type O. After that, I received daily messages and voicemails from my ex-husband. Apparently, after being evicted from their respective homes, my husband, my mother-in-law, and the man with whom my mother-in-law had an affair had decided to start a new life together. When I saw the contents of the messages, I laughed because it was such a strange combination. However, it was impossible for them to cooperate with each other after the bitter fight they had been through. As expected, they were not getting along with anyone. So he asked me for help. How could he be so brazen? I ignored everything and blocked all of his accounts and phone numbers. And my ex-husband's bad luck did not stop there. He came to my current place of employment. However, he never confronted me. I was so terrified that he had been following me again and again that I had talked to the company about him and had them put the groundwork in place in advance. As soon as the surveillance camera caught sight of him at the entrance, sirens went off in the office. I watched through the monitor as he ran away from the security guards, startled by the sound of the sirens. The employees, who had witnessed my ex-husband's obsession, all took pity on me and promised to keep him away from me in the future. Soon after that, another person came to my office. It was my mother-in-law, who should no longer be involved. She came during my lunch break, when I was not in the office, and caught me in the hallway.
"I finally found you. You have to take responsibility for once and for all."
Her voice echoed through the office corridor. A passing employee looks at me with concern as someone from outside the company is engaging with me, his face contorted in anger.
What's going on all of a sudden?" Why did you even come to my office?
I was puzzled, and she, looking much paler and paler than before, ranted and raved.
Of course I did. If only you hadn't done the DNA test, none of this would have happened. You've ruined everything I've worked for. Everything I've built up is ruined. Everything is a mess.
She was the one who cheated on her husband and did not tell me for over 30 years that she had a child with him, but she forced me to take the blame. She was about to grab me when a security guard came and took her down. The incident was immediately reported, and even the police came to the scene. For some reason, my ex-husband was there with me at the time and was watching from the shadows, so it seems that both parents were questioned together. I really wish they would stop this. My new life has already started, and I am divorced from my ex-husband. The next day, I returned home with the thought, please let me lead a peaceful life. The next day, just like the day before, someone entered the company and waited for me in the hallway. This time it was my father-in-law. There was no way I had told him where I worked, and I wondered where the information had leaked from. I looked at him with a sense of dread and he said, well, I caused you a lot of trouble in the past and made a lot of noise. I left my wife and kicked my son out of the house, and then I realized that we are short on staff. I know you're divorced, but you're still my daughter-in-law, and I want you to help us as an employee, he said, his face smiling as he spoke of his mysterious theory.
Don't be absurd. I am your son's ex-wife whom you insulated. I have nothing to do with this now. If you are headhunting, please look elsewhere. As I replied calmly, my father-in-law's scowl changed and his eyes sharpened, and he came at me fiercely. You're going to talk back to me? When you were married to my son, you never quit your job, you never moved in with him, and you were selfish. I told you I was going to cut ties with my son and wife and hire you from scratch, and you said no to that, too? Women these days are all so cocky and disgusting. His attitude was so strange, and just like when my ex-mother-in-law came to see me, the security guards and the police immediately came and took him away. So the days of the 3 people involved coming to my office came to an end, and I was somehow able to be released, much to the concern of the people at my office. This time, I would be able to work peacefully. My ex-father-in-law tried to rebuild the business, which was short-staffed, by putting the divorced but still ex-family theory against my ex-husband and ex-mother-in-law. Both my ex-husband and my ex-mother-in-law were in need of a place to live and money, so they reluctantly complied if they were given a house and a job. However, there is no way that a family that has been so troubled by lies and betrayal can get along now. Their family life and business have not been going well, and their neighborhood is filled with the sound of terrible fights every day and night, and it seems that the entire community has been snubbing them. Even so, he has been paid his alimony. Because he has a lawyer on the other side, he receives reminders every time the payment stops. Perhaps they are reluctantly living with debts because they cannot make ends meet if they pay alimony in their current environment. And to repay his debts, he finds his life even more difficult. He seems to be in a perfect vicious circle, working for his ex-father's company on the cheap. On the other hand, my life is going very well. The know-how I have acquired at the head office has come in handy at my new job. I have been praised for my speed and accuracy, and I have already gained the trust of those around me. I have already been offered a raise and a promotion, and I am expected to do even better than before. The people around me are calm and cheerful, and I feel like I want to work here forever. The environment is one in which I would like to keep working. Marie has grown up quickly, taking care of her at a daycare center during the daytime and sometimes getting help from my mother. By going to the hospital regularly, the atopic dermatitis is gradually getting better, which is a relief for the moment. It is so cute to see her telling me about what happened at the daycare center every day. His 3rd birthday is approaching soon, and my mother and I are discussing how we should celebrate it. Even though she is still too young to remember it, I want to give her a nice and lovely celebration. My mother has been knitting sweaters for my daughter. You can count on me to knit you the cutest sweater in the world, she said, and showed off her work in front of me.
I have taken up baking and am preparing to make a birthday cake for my daughter while making her daily snacks. I've started baking, and while making my daily snacks, I'm preparing to make a homemade birthday cake for my daughter. What do you think, Marie? She nodded her head a little and answered, apple pie. I couldn't help but smile at her cuteness. I am sure that I will have to face many hardships in my long life. But I want to overcome them with a smile, trusting the people around me in work and child rearing, and carefully accepting what is in front of me. With this child, I am sure we will be fine. My name is Kelly, and I'm 34 years old. I've been married to Sean for 5 years. The year we got married, we were blessed with a daughter named Yvonne, and together, we've built a happy home. Yes, we were happy. Just an ordinary family, enjoying our everyday happiness as if it were the most natural thing in the world. I never doubted that these days would last forever. It all started with one sentence I said. Hey, Sean. I'm thinking of going back to work once Yvonne starts elementary school. It was something I had been considering for a long time. My job requires a specialized certification, and I believe I was quite valued in the field. I pursued this certification out of passion, and of course, I loved my job. So, I planned to return to work when a milestone in parenting was reached. However, whenever I brought up this topic, Sean would make a sour face. What? You going back to work? You're a stay-at-home mom now, aren't you? I need you to continue supporting me and our home, and now you're talking about this? We don't need extra money more than what I earn. It's pointless. But that's not pointless. Sure, I think your earnings are good, but that might not always be the case. Having extra money wouldn't be a problem for Yvonne's sake, right? Of course, I plan to balance both work and home life. So, enough. There's absolutely no need for you to work outside. End of discussion. Just go and prepare dinner already. And just like that, he would dismiss the conversation, making it impossible to discuss further. Sean belongs to what you might call the elite class, having graduated from a prestigious university and working at a well-known corporation with a good salary. He must be proud of his achievements. There were times when he would speak to me in a condescending manner. Lately, his harsh tone has become more frequent, dismissing my words outright. Honestly, it made me feel bad and sad. We're supposed to be partners and a family. I thought he would support me, but he outright rejected the idea so dismissively. I bit my lip. Since then, whenever I tried to bring up the topic of returning to work, Sean would blatantly show his displeasure, and at times, he would shout, pretending not to hear me. Or he would just completely ignore me, like, hey, Sean. Refusing to have a proper discussion, acting childishly. I never thought that discussing my return to work would lead to such a dispute. The relationship between Sean and me visibly deteriorated. He started ignoring me even in daily conversations, and it seemed he disliked being in the same space as me, quickly retreating to his room. I was troubled. Is it my fault? If I apologize and endure, would everything be smoothed over? Sean adores our daughter Yvonne and, since he started ignoring me, he often goes out with her without telling me. If it means he's a good father to her, should I back down and resolve the discord in our family? While I was troubled by these thoughts, an event that would decide the fate of our marriage occurred. That day, Sean had left home early in the morning for a business trip. He's always had a job that requires frequent travel, but lately, he's been going on business trips even more often. I can't help but think negatively, wondering if he's choosing to go on these trips just to avoid being in the same house as me. No, I shouldn't be so weak. I shook my head to clear those thoughts. After dropping Yvonne off at daycare, I returned home alone and rolled up my sleeves, determined. When Sean is away on business trips, cleaning his study, which is his workspace, has been my routine. I've continued to do so even though our relationship has become awkward. I no longer receive words of gratitude like we used to when we were newlyweds. I picked up the vacuum cleaner and opened the door to the study. And just about 10 minutes into cleaning, I found something.
What?
I stumbled upon a completed divorce form. What is this? For a moment, I couldn't comprehend what was happening. I had never seen a real divorce form before, but why was it here, filled out in Sean's meticulous handwriting, with Sean's name on it? I panicked, my mind entangled. My legs wobbled, and my hands, seeking support, knocked down books and documents on the desk. Books and documents fell with a rustle, and among them, fluttering down, was a photo of a woman I didn't recognize. Mixed in were photos of her and Sean, looking close and affectionate.
Ah!
I gathered the photos from the floor and my eyes widened. This woman, could it really be? I clutched the photo, trembling. Witnessing Sean's betrayal filled my heart with sadness and disappointment. Then, what surged next was anger. A fierce anger that seemed to erase the initial sadness and disappointment. Unforgivable. This wasn't just a betrayal against me, but also against Yvonne. I spread out the photos and divorce papers I had collected on the desk. So, that's what it was all about. Just you wait. I made up my mind and resumed cleaning as if nothing had happened. Focusing on cleaning seemed to help organize my thoughts as well. While moving my hands, I pondered. When had Sean started being unfaithful? Was it from that time, or perhaps even before? I replayed a scene in my mind that I had witnessed about 6 months ago. It was when I was catching up with my friend Lisa at a coffee shop. Isn't that Kelly's husband?
What?
When Lisa pointed out, I turned my eyes towards the sidewalk on the other side of the window glass, and indeed, there was Sean. I tilted my head. He should have gone to work as usual this morning, but he was walking in casual clothes, not in a suit.
Really? You noticed well, Lisa.
I saw his face at the wedding, you know. I have a good memory. Despite being proud, Lisa's comment couldn't keep me from focusing on Sean walking down the street. Sensing something, Lisa suggested, should we follow him? So, we left the coffee shop. Sean, unaware of us, walked briskly and with ease. And then...
What?
He seemed to have a rendezvous with a woman as he quickly approached her, and they walked off arm in arm. Who is that woman?
Wait, Kelly!
Lisa called me with a panicked voice. Before I knew it, I was recording a video with my smartphone in hand. Lisa urged me, so I took out my smartphone and captured Sean and the woman. They were walking and talking as if they were close, disappearing in the direction of a row of hotels.
So, what's this all about?
Lisa looked at me awkwardly. Then, after checking my frozen expression, she comforted me kindly.
You can always rely on me when you need to.
With these encouraging words from my friend, I trudged back home. That night, Sean returned home in his suit as usual, loudly saying, I'm so tired today, and handed me his jacket. In hindsight, I wonder why I didn't confront him then. Even though I had evidence in my hand, I couldn't bring myself to question Sean. Somewhere in my heart, I was muddled with thoughts like maybe it was a misunderstanding, maybe that woman was a colleague from work, and maybe it wasn't what it seemed. The feelings of doubt and wanting to believe in Sean were at war, nearly overwhelming me. Sean acted as if nothing was different. Today, he was doting on Yvonne with a smitten face. Eventually, I let that incident fade from my memory, convincing myself it must have been some mistake. But not anymore. A rage greater than my sorrow and disappointment spurred me into action. I was determined to clarify everything and to bring closure to our marriage with Sean. After finishing the cleaning, I watched the video saved on my smartphone again. I was glad I hadn't deleted it. The next day, I started gathering evidence of Sean's infidelity in earnest. After dropping Yvonne off at daycare and returning home, I decided to delve into Sean's study again. First, I decided to start with the computer. This computer was shared between us, and I occasionally used it as well. I knew the password to my husband's account, because it was stuck to the back of the desk. For someone who prides himself on being an elite, this kind of carelessness was once endearing. Now, it's not cute at all, and rather, I should probably be thankful for this oversight. As expected, when I turned on the computer, I found plenty of photos that could serve as evidence. Photos of them acting like a young couple, disgustingly edited with heart emojis flying around. The completed divorce papers were placed right where they'd catch my eye as soon as I entered the room. And the photos seemed like they'd just fall out if I moved something slightly. To think it was this obvious all along makes me feel foolish for all the anguish I went through. No, I actually was foolish. Even after witnessing Sean and that woman together, I still wanted to believe in him. I've been foolish all along. And Sean must have been laughing at me. He probably thought he'd never get caught cheating. Did he see me as a convenient person who wouldn't notice the affair and just keep taking care of things diligently? Thinking about it makes my anger boil up again. Now, this anger is my driving force. I printed all the photos with the printer. I decided to hire a private investigator, a classic move for infidelity investigations. Based on the photos and videos, I started looking into the other woman. It turns out she was indeed a subordinate at Sean's company. Regardless of their real relationship, it seems my guess of a subordinate at the company was correct. She's younger and prettier than me. I don't know about at work, but she seems to dress quite flashy and enjoys going out. Looking at it, I can't help but wonder if Sean is the one being played. As the day of Sean's return neared, I decided to install a listening device in the study to gather more evidence.
I'm beat.
My husband greeted me at the entrance with his jacket and suitcase, speaking loudly as always.
Welcome home. You really worked hard.
I received his belongings with a smile. Sean looked at me a bit startled, then stared at me intently. What's with the good mood? Geez, if only you greeted me like this all the time.
I'm sorry. I guess I didn't have enough patience. I truly am always grateful to you. Thank you, really.
Oh, well, as long as you get it, that's fine. I'm gonna hit the shower first. Sean seemed satisfied with my reaction, strutted off proudly, and hurried to the changing room. I thought my acting was pretty wooden, but to my surprise, I fooled him easily, which was somewhat anticlimactic. I immediately took Sean's smartphone from his belongings and started looking for exchanges with his affair partner. By the way, the password for his smartphone was the same as his computer's. Way too careless. I found the exchanges quite easily. Unbecomingly for his age, they were full of heart emojis at the end of sentences. Disgusting messages. I took some photos of these screens with my own smartphone. It felt like just another task, devoid of any emotion. Of course, my anger towards Sean was still present, but it was almost hidden by a sense of nothingness. All I could think about now was how to show him I wasn't to be trifled with. After taking the evidence photos and putting Sean's smartphone back, I took a moment to breathe just as Sean came up from his bath. As instructed by Sean, I prepared beer and snacks. Hey, is Yvonne already asleep? I wanted to see her face.
Yeah, it's already 10 p.m. She was looking forward to seeing you too.
I see. Maybe I'll check on her for a bit before bed. From such a harmless conversation, we moved on to talk about his recent business trip. Sean, with a beer in hand, went on and on about how tough this job was and how amazing he was to be entrusted with it. I responded with almost scripted words of praise. Wow, that's impressive, as expected, you worked hard. Still, Sean seemed satisfied, which made me realize he really wasn't listening to my words, nor did he care. Then, I decided to probe a little.
Sean, you're truly amazing. The people who work under you are lucky to have such an incredible boss. Heh, right. You're finally getting how great I am. Those subordinates of mine are useless without me. I have to guide them properly or they're hopeless. Just a bunch of useless trash. They need to work harder.
As the alcohol kicked in, Sean's voice grew louder. Though his words were unbearable to listen to, I kept going.
That's so. I don't know much about it. But it's no small feat to guide your subordinates outside of work too. You're really something.
Yeah, that's right. Outside of work, too, huh?
Outside of work?
Yes.
The other day, you were walking in casual clothes during a weekday with a woman I don't know. I thought maybe you were guiding a subordinate, so I didn't say anything, but, huh? Was I mistaken?
Well, that is... As I tilted my head and asked, Sean started to fidget and dart his eyes around. Such an obvious reaction.
At that time, I was with a friend. And that friend said, "Isn't that like cheating?" But that's impossible, right? There's no reason for you to cheat. Especially since we have Yvonne. What? What kind of nonsense are you talking about?
When I mentioned cheating, Sean seemed genuinely surprised. And then, probably reflexively, he pushed my shoulder hard, sending me stumbling. Caught off guard, I fell onto the flooring, harshly hitting my palms and knees.
Ouch! Cheating? I would never do such a thing. Don't spout such nonsense. But that's what I'm saying. There's no way that's true, right? Yes, it's your misunderstanding. Don't make such strange assumptions. It's bad for Yvonne.
From the floor, I looked up at Sean as he shouted, spittle flying. He was incredibly agitated, probably because I hit a nerve. I never expected him to get physical. Though it wasn't much of a damage. In my apron pocket, I had a voice recorder hidden. This conversation should be recorded perfectly.
First off, you going out with friends during the day? Neglecting housework, what are you doing? While I, am busy guiding subordinates at work. Useless wife.
Sean's tirade only gained momentum. A little while ago, I would have been hurt and looked down immediately. But now, I am different. Sean's nonsensical insults just passed through me without effect. Such unreasonable things can't hurt me. Was this outburst because he couldn't relieve his stress on the business trip, I wonder? That thought made sense of his intensity.
Anyway, when I'm out working for the family, were you even doing your part properly? Taking advantage of my absence to do as you please, neglecting housework, gallivanting around.
Huh? Oops, I reacted without thinking. Then, Sean started laughing like a child.
That reaction.
You're the one, aren't you?
Cheating, right. I never thought I married such a low woman. Why did I ever marry you? You're the bad influence on Yvonne, not me. A wife who doubts her husband isn't needed. Let's just divorce.
What on earth is he talking about? I was dumbfounded. I was speechless with astonishment. Was his drinking always this bad? Had he been hiding it all this time? Sean kept hurling insults at me as if he hadn't said enough. It seemed like he didn't even understand what he was saying anymore. Honestly, I was getting bored of it. I had enough evidence, and I thought it was about time to wrap this up when suddenly...
Dad. What are you doing? Don't bully Mom. Huh? Yvonne?
Yvonne, in her pajamas, came rushing out as if to protect me. Apparently, Sean's loud yelling had woken her up. I hurriedly reassured Yvonne, not expecting her to witness such a scene.
Yvonne, it's okay. Mom is fine, see? Now, you should go back to your room and sleep, or you won't be able to wake up early tomorrow, right? Yeah, Yvonne. Dad was not, bullying Mom. No, you were. You were yelling at Mom and pushed her. Mom fell down, and you didn't help at all, just kept yelling. Dad is mean. I hate Dad who bullies Mom.
Yvonne raised her voice at Sean and jumped into my arms.
Mom, are you okay? Does it hurt anywhere?
Yvonne's eyes were trembling with anxiety. Not just her eyes. Her little hands and shoulders were shaking too. I wonder how much she saw. I was immediately flooded with regret. I should have considered the possibility that my daughter might witness this, that it could shock her, yet I acted thoughtlessly. I searched for soothing words and gently stroked Yvonne's head in my arms. Sean, having been shouted at by Yvonne that she hated him, stood there dumbfounded, seemingly shocked. Finally defeated, he silently headed to his own room without a word. Since that day, Yvonne has avoided Sean. Whenever Sean tried to make up with her, she would immediately run away and hide. After several such interactions, Sean seemed completely broken. He began to ignore me entirely and would retreat to his study as soon as he came home from work. The listening device I had placed in the study revealed Sean's state clearly. Sean, now withdrawn, started frequently contacting his affair partner. It seemed like he was using the speakerphone, so I could clearly hear the woman's voice.
So yeah, because of my wife, my daughter started rejecting me. It's really tough. Now she runs away just at the sight of me.
Wow, that's awful.
Using your kid in a marital fight? Doesn't she have any maternal instincts?
Exactly.
Just like you said, Nadia, no maternal instincts. And she doesn't act like a wife either.
Totally. I could be a much better wife to you, Sean. When can we finally be together?
Well.
I'd like to divorce and be with you, Nadia, but she's likely to make a fuss.
Oh yeah, she's leeching off you for money, right? Not working and just living off you. What a parasite. You should divorce her ASAP. The conversation went on like this.
Hearing this, I trembled with anger again. Who's the one lacking parental awareness? I felt like storming in and shouting at him. But in front of Sean and Yvonne, I acted as if nothing was wrong. Being ignored was still better than being verbally attacked. Then, 2 weeks later, Sean was set to go on another business trip. He mentioned it in passing, the only word he had said to me in a long time, but now I knew. This business trip was essentially a cheating vacation. From the listening device's conversations, it seemed they were also using company money for these trips. That's a serious crime, and it wasn't the first time he pretended to be on business trips when he was actually with his affair partner. This upcoming trip was no exception, supposedly for business but actually a hot spring vacation with his affair partner. I had gathered enough evidence and was ready. It was time to act. Sean hadn't even noticed that mine and Yvonne's belongings were gradually disappearing from the house. I had had enough. On the day Sean left, I had the moving company, which I had already booked, come and move out the large furniture. Our belongings were taken to a new home, which I had already viewed and signed a lease for. Saving money before we got married was truly a good decision. I explained to Yvonne that we were separating from Sean. She was still young, but I didn't want to leave things ambiguous. Then Yvonne said, "So, Mom won't have to be yelled at by Dad anymore. When Dad is around, Mom always looks so sad. I don't need a dad who makes Mom look like that," and hugged me with a smile. I was saved by my daughter's kindness. And that was the most important thing of all. I left the house with the completed divorce papers and a certain envelope in hand. On the day Sean was due back, I was at my in-laws' house. Well, my former in-laws, to be precise. When I explained what Sean had done, with evidence to back it up, my in-laws were deeply sympathetic and took my side.
That idiot son of ours. No, I refuse to acknowledge him as a son anymore. I'll disown him. Calm down, dear. Kelly, I'm so sorry our son has caused you so much trouble. To think he would cheat when he has such a lovely wife and daughter.
They were ready to confront Sean right then and there, so I suggested we wait for him to contact us first. I waited in the living room with my mother-in-law for Sean's call. Yvonne played with her grandfather. Eventually, the phone rang. As expected, it was Sean.
Hey! What's going on? The house is empty!
He began the conversation by ranting. It was so predictable I almost laughed.
What do you mean the house is empty? I mean, everything's gone. It's like a ghost house. My stuff is still there, but where's everything belonging to you and Yvonne?
Oh, because we moved out.
We're not coming back to that house.
When I calmly informed him, Sean was speechless. I could only imagine. Sean, standing alone in the dark, empty house, stunned.
What? Moved out? What are you talking about?
Well, we're strangers now.
It wouldn't be right for strangers to stay in your house, so we moved out. What? What are you talking about? We're not strangers, we're married. No, we're strangers. After all, I've already submitted the divorce papers.
Sean was speechless again at my words. I told him calmly.
You wanted a divorce, right? You even said so to me before and had the divorce papers ready. I wanted a divorce too, so it worked out perfectly. It was all done with mutual consent. What? You found those divorce papers? Found them? More like they were right in front of my eyes. I thought you left them there on purpose. Like, please submit these. So, I did. And it's all been officially processed, so don't worry. No, I don't want that. Huh? No. That wasn't my intention. The divorce papers, that was just, a joke, kind of written in the heat of the moment. I didn't leave them there because I wanted you to submit them. Cancel it right now. Let's go to the office together. It's impossible to cancel it now. And claiming it was a joke is a lie, right? Did you write it to manipulate me by threatening with divorce? Or did your mistress tell you to write it? Huh? You might have thought you were hiding it, but it's been obvious for a while. I've thoroughly investigated the affair and your mistress. I'll be claiming both alimony and child support, so be prepared. What? You knew about the affair? I thought you were just a clueless wife. Thanks to you underestimating me, I quickly gathered a ton of evidence. Thanks for that,
I said sarcastically.
Oh, and I've informed your company about the affair. You two were using company money for trips, right? That's a crime. You knew that, didn't you? Oh.
Sean let out a sigh of despair. Having said what I wanted to, I handed the phone to my mother-in-law.
Leave the rest to us.
Her strong voice reassured me, and I nodded.
Yvonne, let's go play over there. Okay.
I took Yvonne from my father-in-law and left the living room. As I closed the door, I could feel my in-laws' anger exploding. That was the end of our marriage. I sighed. Our divorce was irrevocable, and we went our separate ways. Sean and his mistress were both fired from their company. The misused funds were covered by Sean's savings and the rest by my in-laws, leaving Sean broke. After disowning Sean, my in-laws only communicate through lawyers now. Sean, now with nowhere to go, lives with his equally destitute mistress, bickering constantly. And of course, he has to pay alimony and child support, so he's working tirelessly.
Please, let me see Yvonne at least.
He once called with a feeble voice, but I coldly replied, didn't we agree all communications should go through our lawyers? I can't let someone who can't even keep that promise see her, and hung up. As a single mother, I've managed to restart my career using my old connections. I'm the only one who can protect Yvonne now. For my sake and, more importantly, for my daughters, I've vowed to live a new life.
Thank you for this month, for doing all this for someone like me. I really wish I could have given you more. What are you talking about? You always help me out. This is worth more than $60.
After my father passed away, my mom has been living on her own in her family home, getting by on a pension of $1,000 a month. I've been sending her money as a form of support. But it wasn't just $60.
Wait a minute, what do you mean $60? Well, you've been transferring it to me every month, haven't you? I did transfers, but I sent you $2,000, not $60. $2,000.
Right before I started sending her money, we had a minor argument. We hadn't reconciled since, until today. I didn't want to think about it, but I couldn't help wondering if someone did this to spite me. Yet, seeing my mom's shocked face, it didn't seem like she was lying.
But then, how did this happen? Could there have been a mistake with the amount? That's impossible. Weren't you the one who transferred it?
That's when something important dawned on me. How could I have forgotten something so simple?
Right, that's what it was. Did you figure something out?
Yes, I even know who did it. The culprit was someone close to us.
So, I need your help with something, Mom. If there's anything I can do.
That's how we started our plan. The first step was to hand over next month's money in person. This would reveal the perpetrator's actions and motives. And with that, our quest for revenge began. I'm Tabitha. I'm currently running a small clothing store I inherited from my father 2 years ago. I worked at a cosmetics company until I became 50. Then, my father passed away in a car accident. At first, the inheritance went to my mother, but considering her age among other things, I ended up taking over.
Need any help?
My husband Michael offered. He usually works as a construction site supervisor. He helps out whenever he can find the time.
I was actually thinking of closing the shop, so we're good.
Then let's head home together.
Okay, just give me a moment.
I married Michael when I was 24. It was arranged by a relative, but we hit it off right from the first meeting. It was a whirlwind romance. We married less than a month after we met. Especially in our younger days, we were known as the lovey-dovey couple around the neighborhood. I believe that hasn't changed even now.
By the way, Kevin is visiting us soon. Really? Why does he never tell me these things? Maybe he's scared. Oh, come on!
Kevin is our only son, now married and living in a different town. He visits us regularly but always seems to show up unexpectedly. And the following weekend, Kevin came over. I'm home.
Huh? You're by yourself today?
Yeah, my wife went out with some friends. I was on my own, so I thought I'd come over.
Come on in. Your dad's waiting, too.
Then I noticed Kevin looked a bit serious.
Mom, I've got something important to talk about. Something important? Yeah, I'd prefer if it were just the two of us.
While we were talking, my husband Michael came from the back. How long are you gonna stand there chatting?
I'll be there in a minute. Mom, let's talk about what I mentioned earlier another time.
Sure. I had never seen my son react this way before. I was curious but thought it might not be right to pry too much at the moment, so I let it be. How have you been lately?
Oh, yeah, everything's going well.
As we engaged in an ordinary parent-child conversation, a smartphone rang.
Isn't that Dad's? Let me see.
Michael stepped away, and after about 5 minutes, he came back. Looking slightly annoyed.
Everything okay? I need to head to the office.
Seems like there's some trouble there.
That sounds serious.
Kevin, you're here for a visit, take your time and relax.
I will.
After making sure my husband had left, Kevin resumed our earlier conversation.
About what I was saying earlier, well, it's just a light rumor, so I'm not sure how true it is. What are you talking about? It's about Dad's company. A friend told me that it seems like the business isn't doing too well. Like going bankrupt? But it's just a rumor, right? Apparently, a former employee said that. And behind the scenes, they might be up to even worse stuff. That can't be true.
At that moment, I was skeptical.
Anyway, I think it's best we keep this to ourselves and not tell Dad. You're right. If something's up, he'll surely talk to us about it. Let's keep this between you and me for now.
After Kevin left, I was alone at home, thinking about our conversation. We've always consulted each other about anything before. So, I decided to trust my husband. Then, one day, he came to me with a request.
I've got a favor to ask. A favor? Well, if it's something I can do. I need to borrow some money. What for?
I can't say.
What? I can't lend you the money without an explanation.
Please. He was prostrating himself, even shedding tears. I had never seen him like this in all our years of marriage.
How much?
$20,000.
$20,000.
I was shocked by the amount. I hesitated.
I can't lend it to you without knowing what it's for. I'm sorry, but I just can't do it. Sure.
I silently nodded. All right. With that, he said he was going out for a walk and left. As much as he's been my partner for years, some things just aren't that simple. At the same time, I received news that my mother had taken a fall. Rushing to the hospital, I found her in surprisingly good spirits.
What happened?
I just tripped over a step. Seeing my mother laugh it off, I couldn't help but lose my temper.
This isn't funny. It might have been minor this time, but
there's no need to get so mad.
That's why I said we should live together after Dad died.
But I refused, didn't I? After that, we had our first argument in years. Neither of us would budge, and we were at a stalemate.
Is there really no way? I don't want to be a burden on you too. You shouldn't worry about that. And with your pension being just $1,000, life must be tough, right? Still, we can make it work with some budgeting.
I made a proposal to my mother.
Then, I'll start sending you money every month. How about that?
All right.
Then I'll start this month.
3 days later, my mother was discharged from the hospital. However, our relationship remained strained. Yet, my hope was that this would make things a bit easier for her. A few weeks later, I woke up to find my husband was not at home. He's usually sitting on the sofa reading the newspaper on weekends. I wondered if he had gone out somewhere. But, with time pressing, I left for the shop to start opening preparations. Arriving at the shop, I found the shutter open.
Is anybody there?
As I called out, I saw a figure in the back of the shop. Approaching cautiously, I realized it was my husband.
Hey! What are you doing here? Oh, yeah. Just looking for something.
Should I help look?
No, it's okay. I found it,
he said, making me leave the shop.
Wait a minute. What's up?
If you're heading back home, there's something I'd like to ask.
Oh, yeah?
What's the favor? Actually, I've decided to start sending money to Mom from this month. Could you deposit it for me?
Leave it to me.
I handed him the money and asked him to make the deposit. It was a casual request at the time, but little did I know what it would lead to. Days passed without issue, but then I began to notice a change in my husband's behavior. I'm home.
Welcome back.
He was unusually cheerful that day. And he was carrying shopping bags in both hands. Here, a present for you.
Is today a special occasion?
Not really, but it's nice to do this once in a while, isn't it? The bag my husband handed me was filled haphazardly with high-end bags.
What's going on?
Well, I bought them, of course.
I guess, but it's so sudden.
I couldn't comprehend the situation in front of me. It was a pleasant surprise. But he had never given me so many gifts at once before. Moreover, he seemed to have been drinking, as the smell of alcohol was evident.
Isn't this a bit too much drinking?
Not at all.
Your steps are even wobbly.
It felt like it had been a while since I saw my husband drunk. I couldn't remember when, but he had stopped his nightly drinks that he used to have daily. I figured he must have bought these things on a drunken impulse.
Anyway, should I get you some water?
Yeah, please. He seemed quite drunk, sitting down at the entrance. I went to the kitchen and brought back a glass of water.
Here.
He drank the water quickly. I hoped it would help him settle down, but then he suddenly raised his voice and threw the cup against the wall. What's this?
What are you doing? I asked for booze. What are you talking about? I said I was bringing water. Just bring the booze.
He was clearly not aware of what he was saying anymore.
Can you stop this? Are you defying me? That's not it at all. I'm just worried about you.
But once agitated, my husband wouldn't calm down.
Why do I have to go through this? What are you talking about?
It seemed my words weren't reaching my husband. He continued to talk as if I wasn't even there.
If only I had more money.
At that moment, I remembered when he had previously asked to borrow $20,000.
Money?
When I asked back, he seemed to snap back to reality with a start.
It's nothing. Forget what I just said.
But forgetting was not something I could easily do. He stood up abruptly and went to the bedroom, ignoring me.
Wait a minute.
I tried to follow him, but to my dismay, he locked the bedroom door. Unable to enter, I ended up spending the night on the sofa. And the next morning. Hey.
Good morning.
You slept here?
Well, I couldn't get into the bedroom.
Sorry. He seemed unusually compliant. Perhaps the alcohol had fully worn off.
It's okay. I'll be more careful from now on.
Thinking this might be a good moment to ask about last night, I broached the subject.
About what you said last night.
Sorry, I don't remember much. Did I say something weird?
Not exactly, but was there something bothering you?
No, not really. At this point, he clearly avoided my gaze.
What about the money?
Oh, that should work out, so I'm gonna head out early today.
Oh. Okay.
He left the house early without even having breakfast. It was clear he was hiding something from me. But I still didn't know what. Unable to sit still, I reached out to my son.
Sorry to call so early in the morning. It's fine, but what's up? I just needed to talk about something.
I explained the unease I've been feeling lately. I see. I've tried to get the full story, but he either dodges the question or runs away from it. I don't know what to do. From what you've told me, it's clear he's hiding something. Finding a good solution seemed impossible, and I was at a loss. After a moment of silence, my son made a suggestion. Then, let me ask him directly.
What?
Being a man, maybe I can get him to open up.
Do you think he'll talk to you?
I'll do what I can. So, about the day. We came up with a plan. The execution day was set for Sunday, 2 weeks from now. Until then, we would be extra careful not to let my husband suspect anything. I'll be home late today.
That's fine, but what about your return?
I'm not sure. There's a company drinking party for the first time in a while.
Don't drink too much like last time.
I know.
Oh, and please take care of this month too.
I said, handing over an envelope.
Got it.
I saw my husband off, then headed to my shop. Next to my clothing store, there's an old butcher shop. That's been there since I was a child. It's run by the Nadies, an elderly couple.
Tabitha, do you have a moment?
Yes, what's up?
Actually, there's something I've been meaning to talk about.
I listened intently, wondering what this was about.
A little while ago, I saw your husband in the shop, and something about his behavior caught my attention.
That must have been when he said he was looking for something.
Yes, he mentioned he was looking for something at that time. Really? I peeked in because I was curious and he seemed frantic. Frantic? I think he was towards the back of the shop, looking for something with such an intense expression that it actually scared me a bit. I see. Thank you for letting me know. But that issue has been resolved.
Oh, is that so? I feel like I made a big deal out of it for nothing.
No, not at all. I appreciate your concern.
All right then, see you around. After ending the conversation, I headed to the back of the shop. There were a couple of simple desks with drawers in the back. Just to be sure, I checked the drawers, but they were all securely locked. The conversation had naturally ended, but I never got to ask what he was looking for. After finishing my work, I waited for my husband to return. He said he had a drinking party, so he might not come back yet. It was already 9 p.m. I passed the time reading a book. Looking at the clock, it was nearly midnight, and I was just about to go to bed. My husband returned. He didn't seem too drunk.
Didn't drink much today? I caused enough trouble last time.
I see.
Oh, by the way, the butcher's wife asked me today about that time you were looking for something.
Oh yeah, that happened. So, what were you looking for? Huh?
I mean, I was just wondering what it was.
I stared intently at my husband.
Right, I never mentioned it. It was this.
He showed me a watch he was wearing.
So it was that. My question is answered.
I smiled, but inside, I was thinking something different. The watch he showed wasn't with him at that time. He had said himself he bought the bags he came home with. Why go to such lengths to lie? Either way, I thought it was necessary to report this to my son. And then the promised Sunday arrived.
Did you say he was coming today? I happen to have some errands nearby.
Today's visit is just a side trip.
Come on in, at least.
Huh? But aren't you going out?
I have some unavoidable errands to run.
Oh, I see. Be careful then. I gave my son a look that said it was all up to him and left the house. His expression assured me he was on it. Furthermore, we left the smartphone on call, so I could listen in on the conversation between my son and husband. Pretending to leave was strategic, thinking it would coax the truth out more effectively. Soon, I could hear their conversation.
Lately, Mom seems worried about you. Worried? Is there something you're aware of? I don't know what you mean. Besides, Mom isn't here, right? That's true. Can we keep this talk between us? Of course.
I was a bit excited about what I might hear next. What my husband shared was something I had heard from my son before.
The company hasn't been doing well lately. Employees are leaving one after the other. But you're still working there despite the situation? Well, yes, but I've been thinking of quitting. Continuing to work there will only trouble your mom.
I had my doubts about my husband, but hearing those words brought a bit of relief.
I see. But wouldn't it be better to talk about it more? Maybe, but it's hard to discuss in this uncertain state. I understand. I'll keep quiet about this. But you're planning to talk about it eventually, right?
Yes. After that, they shared updates about their lives. It felt like a slight weight had been lifted off my heart. Well, I've got to go now.
You're leaving already?
I'll come back again.
Take care.
After leaving the house, my son called me. Were you listening? I heard everything perfectly.
Well, that seems to be the situation. So, he wanted to borrow money before, that was because of this?
Probably.
For now, we might just have to watch and see.
Here, I decided to tell him about the incident at the shop.
Oh. I forgot there was something I hadn't told you.
I explained about my husband's search.
Mom, you should have told me sooner. I completely forgot. It's weird to say this, but the story might not be so simple. What? I don't have all the answers yet, but let me know right away if you notice anything else. Got it.
After talking with my son for a while, I went back home. And from here on, I would come to know my husband's true intentions. With that knowledge, anger and a desire for revenge began to swell within me.
Could you lend me just $400? $400? I forgot to make a payment, and I'll pay you back next week, please? You're going to pay it back for sure?
Of course. I should have refused, but I ended up lending him the money. Deep down, I might have wanted to believe in my husband. And from here, my caution towards him began to fade. Because my husband did pay me back properly. Emboldened by this, he gradually began to ask for larger amounts of money. It must have been his strategy all along. Without realizing, I lent him money time and again.
Hey, hurry up and prepare dinner. What? Didn't you say you'd eat out today? I never said that, did I? Stop complaining and hurry up with the preparations. Fine, I get it.
For some reason, my husband had misunderstood something and started looking down on me, adopting a domineering attitude. He seemed to believe that he could borrow money from me if he asked. His erratic behavior continued unabated.
Isn't it a bit too much to drink?
When I returned from work, my husband had already started drinking in the evening, and there were empty beer cans and wine bottles scattered around. Too much?
This is nothing.
I realized that if things continued like this, it would be a repeat of the past. I began cleaning up. My husband, already intoxicated, threatened me with a bottle in hand, using harsh words.
Listen carefully. If I decide to take action, this bottle is going to fly. Okay, just put down whatever you're holding. Then go buy some more alcohol.
I did as my husband instructed and headed to the convenience store to buy more alcohol. As I stepped outside the house, I gazed at the starry sky above. I hadn't realized how beautiful the sky was. I got lost in the view for a while. Then, I received a call from my husband.
Hello? Where are you? Did you buy the alcohol?
I'm on my way to get it.
Seriously, what are you doing? Hurry up and get it.
I quickly bought the alcohol and returned home. I cautiously opened the door to the living room. I had expected to hear something from my husband, but he was sound asleep, peacefully snoring. I wondered what he was doing with himself and watched him with a mix of emotions. Feeling exhausted from my husband's tyranny, I received an unusual call from my mother.
A phone call is quite rare. What's going on? Thank you every month for doing this for me. I wish I could give you more. What are you talking about? I'm always grateful. It's worth more than $60.
Since my father passed away, my mother had been living alone in her childhood home, surviving on a monthly pension of $1,000. But I wasn't just giving her a mere $60.
Wait a minute, what do you mean $60? You've been transferring it every month, haven't you? I did transfers, but I sent you $2,000, not $60. $2,000.
Right before I started sending the money, we had a minor argument. We hadn't reconciled since then, until today. I didn't want to think about it, but I couldn't help wondering if someone did this to spite me. Yet, hearing my mother's surprised reaction, it didn't seem like she was lying.
But then, how did this happen? Could there have been a mistake with the amount? That's impossible. I made sure to give it in cash. Weren't you the one who transferred it?
My mother's words reminded me of something important. How could I have forgotten something so simple? Right, that's what it was.
Did you figure something out?
Yes, I even know who did it. The culprit was someone close to us.
So, I need your help with something, Mom. If there's anything I can do.
That's how we started our plan. The first step was to hand over next month's money in person. Furthermore, I shared this fact with my son. He didn't seem surprised, in fact, he seemed to understand. And then the day of the next remittance arrived. It happened to be a holiday, and my husband was home but became restless around noon.
Is something wrong? Why do you ask? You seem restless.
Not at all.
Really? Is something bothering you? I told you, nothing's wrong.
His tone grew rougher, perhaps from irritation. That's when I deliberately brought up the subject of sending money.
So, I'm going to see my mother. Did something happen to your mother?
She's fine. I'm going today to give her money. You know, the monthly support we've been sending. Hearing this, my husband's eyes darted around. Then, I'll be off. He stopped me.
Wait a moment.
What?
Never mind. If you have something to say, just spit it out.
But my husband just mumbled, never getting to the point. Seeing him like this only made me more frustrated. After all the effort I'd put into setting this up. Thinking it was a waste of time to wait any longer, I decided to confront him directly.
If you won't say it, then I will. You've been taking the money meant for my mother. That's not true. But I asked you to make the transfers. You might be lying. Are you seriously suggesting my mother is lying?
Refusing to admit his fault, and even suspecting my innocent mother.
There's a record of the transfers, so lying now is pointless.
So, it was you, wasn't it? I did it. He finally confessed. Yet, many questions remained unanswered.
What did you use it for? Remember when you bought all those things? Did you use the money for that?
Yes, that's what I did.
How could you?
I'm sorry. I promise I'll pay it back.
It's too late for apologies now.
I contacted my son right then and there. 30 minutes later, he came.
You told me to hurry, so here I am.
Sorry for the sudden call.
But, your dad confessed.
I explained everything that had happened.
I can't believe it. Grandma's money was used for that?
Anyway, come with me. Bringing my son to the living room, we found my husband slumped over on the sofa.
Why would you do such a foolish thing?
I was already considering divorce.
Just because the company is struggling, doesn't mean you should take someone else's money. Why did you do that?
I've been suspicious for a while. Remember when Kevin came over? I heard everything then.
But you weren't home.
While you and Kevin were talking, I had the phone on the whole time.
All that too?
I figured you wouldn't tell me directly. As I pondered what to do next, my son chimed in.
Can I say something?
Dad, there's something I want to ask.
What?
I heard from Mom that you were looking for something.
Yes. A watch.
I immediately questioned him.
But that watch was bought later, wasn't it? The timeline doesn't make sense.
So, you were searching for something else, right? What were you really looking for? Despite being cornered, my husband remained silent.
Mom, are you sure there's nothing you know? Wait a minute.
I desperately racked my brain. Was there something in that shop that my husband would want? I check the cash register every day, so it can't be related to that. That leaves us with the contents of the desk. My husband, who had been in need of money, might be connected to this.
Oh, could it be?
Did you figure something out?
I can't believe it, but what you took was the deed to the store, right?
I didn't miss the slight twitch in my husband's shoulder. Looks like I hit the mark.
I never expected you to go this far.
This is a serious crime, you know.
So, what did you do with it?
I used it as collateral to borrow some money.
What? And you have no way to pay it back? My head is spinning. Mom.
My son supported me as I sat down.
Anyway, call the police. The police. Why are you surprised? After what you've done, it's only natural.
Later on, we reported it to the police with the help of our son. 15 minutes later, the police arrived, and the situation was explained. My husband admitted to his actions and was taken to the police station. However, this story didn't end there. Some days later, we received a call from the police, and what we heard was shocking. On that day, I decided to visit my husband. He looked completely worn out. "How are you feeling?" He didn't respond to my greeting.
I heard from the police that you were involved in fraud.
My husband widened his eyes and looked at me.
You know that much?
I got the details from the police. It seems that the company my husband worked for had been struggling financially for the past few years. They had even issued bad checks, and it seems they resorted to fraud. I never imagined my husband would get involved in that. No matter how desperate he was for money, getting involved in something like that was the end of the line.
Anyway, you've become a criminal, so I'll be divorcing you through a lawyer. Divorce?
Yes, it's unfortunate, but you should accept it. I got up and left the place. When I left the police station, my son was waiting outside.
"You're back quite early." I said what I needed to say.
"Indeed, you look relieved."
"Now, I need to apologize to my mother."
"In that case, I'll go with you."
"Thank you."
And so, I headed to my parents' home.
"It's unusual for both of you to come together."
"We have something to report today, related to the financial support I've been providing."
"Then I'll explain various things from my end."
And so, I explained the truth to my mother. She listened quietly without saying a word.
That must have been tough.
Despite also being a victim, my mother worried about me. Tears welled up in response to her kindness, but I held them back.
I'll be able to continue providing financial support properly from now on. You don't have to push yourself. I'm not pushing myself. What about Michael? I'm planning to divorce him with the help of a lawyer. If that's your decision, I'll support you.
Later on, the divorce was finalized. As a result, my husband's testimony led to the arrest of 7 individuals, including the president of the company he had worked for. They had wanted to deceive us. According to the lawyer, given the gravity of their crimes, they might even receive a prison sentence. It was painful to see my ex-husband become a criminal. But I couldn't forgive him.
What are you going to do from now on, Mom? Well, I plan to continue running the store. But I'm worried if it's just me. If you want, you can move in with me. Don't worry about me. Besides, I have to take care of Mom. Living together sounds like a good idea.
Additionally, I had the lawyer intervene, and the money my husband had borrowed using the store as collateral was partially forgiven. In the end, I decided to live with my mother. Initially, we settled things by continuing the financial support, but the idea of living together was suggested by my mother. We would hold hands and face the future together. My name is Kelly Turner. I'm a 46-year-old stay-at-home mom. I have 1 child, a boy. My husband is a doctor and works hard every day. As a result, it's rare for our family to go out together. Yet, I feel so blessed that I sometimes wonder if it's okay to be this happy. Today, we're going to celebrate my son getting into college by insisting on going out to eat as a family. We still have some time before our reservation. Taking advantage of the occasion, my husband booked a fancy restaurant, but I left the house early due to my excitement, and now I'm wondering what to do to kill some time. Maybe I should grab a cup of coffee, but I don't want to spoil my appetite. While I was pondering this, I heard a familiar voice. "Hey, infertile woman." I thought it was a terrible thing to say, and then someone tapped me on the shoulder. "Why are you ignoring me? Standing here all alone, looking pitiful, you haven't changed a bit. Still single, huh? Well, I guess it can't be helped. Oh, this is my daughter. She's turned out to be quite the beauty, and she's already in college." "The child you were pregnant with back then?" It was the last person I wanted to encounter. Because he was my ex-husband who, 18 years ago, suddenly showed up with a young woman visibly pregnant and handed me divorce papers saying his mistress was pregnant. "You couldn't have kids with me, so it couldn't be helped. If you're going to blame someone, blame yourself," he said, mocking me, leaving me too shocked to respond. The divorce papers I was forced to sign against my will. How frustrated I was back then. After marrying, I had devoted myself to my husband, yet I was blamed as if everything was my fault, shattering my self-confidence, and yet, after we separated, I inexplicably spent my days in tears. I still can't understand why I ever loved such a man. The child from back then was a girl. Yeah, she is. Pretty, isn't she? I never thought she'd turn out to be this beautiful. Yes, she looks nothing like you, turned out to be such a beautiful woman. We're going to celebrate her getting into college by going out for sushi. Oh, is there a sushi place around here? Yeah, look over there. He said, pointing at a conveyor belt sushi place. Oh, conveyor belt sushi. What's the big deal? Conveyor belt sushi is still sushi, right? Yeah. I haven't been to a conveyor belt sushi place in 18 years, so I totally forgot about it. Right. Conveyor belt sushi is great when you go with family, but it's kinda sad by yourself. Whenever I eat out, it's always with family. It just doesn't taste as good when you're not with family. Oh, but you might not understand that. Sorry. All this talk about family, he must really want to show off how happy he is. So, you never remarried, huh? That's too bad. Well, it's not surprising, considering you can't have kids. But you're what, 46 now? At your age, not many men are looking to have kids anymore, so it's probably not even an issue. Is that so? Don't worry about putting on airs. I know better than anyone that you can't have kids. It's the worst, being a woman and not being able to have children. But there are men out there who don't mind that, so you shouldn't worry. Sure. You seem happy, John.
Yeah, I'm incredibly happy.
That's good to hear. When I said that, I caught sight of my watch. Still have some time, but talking to this person feels like a waste of time. Just then, as I checked my watch, John's wife exclaimed, "Wait, is that watch a designer brand?" Women really do notice brands. Yes, that's right. It's impressive, you could tell just by a quick glance.
It's not just the watch, right? Your necklace is real diamonds, and your clothes and shoes are designer brands too. How much did all that cost?
About $20,000, I guess. $20,000. Hey, don't worry about it. That's because she's single. We have a daughter, don't we? When you have a daughter, you don't need designer stuff. But
she couldn't get the brand of family, so all she can do is dress up her body. Think about it.
Yeah. You're probably just standing around here, all by yourself, wondering what to do, right? Not really. I'm waiting for someone because I have plans. The person you're waiting for is a woman, right? I bet it's just two women going out to eat. Really pitiful. It's impressive how far your imagination can go. That's all you're capable of. I'm off to celebrate with my daughter, but you've got no family to celebrate with. This is how he used to belittle me. The honeymoon phase was happy, but after 2 years, the fact that we couldn't have children made his behavior towards me terrible, always looking down on me. Desperate for a child, I underwent fertility tests, but there was nothing wrong with me. I was perfectly capable of having and bearing children, yet it just never happened. Despite that, I was always blamed, and as we remained childless, I was treated like a maid.
My daughter is excellent. I'm looking forward to her future.
Is that so? Which college did she get into?
She got into college A. Impressive, isn't it?
That's good. Lucky she doesn't take after you.
What did you say? She's the spitting image of me.
Only in terms of intellect, perhaps. College A is known for its low academic standards, after all. She doesn't look anything like him in other aspects. I think, watching my daughter grow up beautiful, if we had had a child together, she wouldn't have turned out this pretty. She's beautiful because she comes from good stock. Sure, your wife is beautiful. Good that she takes after her. But I wonder who she gets the not-so-similar parts from.
It's obviously me. She might not seem like it, but she does resemble me.
If you think so, that's fine, I guess.
You're just jealous of me. Because I have a family and you don't even have a husband or kids. You must be so envious.
I wonder about that. Maybe you just need to feel self-satisfied? After all, you don't have a husband or kids. For now. Anyway, I don't mind what you think. Why don't you just go into the sushi place? It might get crowded and you could end up without a seat. No need to worry about that. It's conveyor belt sushi, so the turnover is quick. John laughed at his own lame joke, but his daughter didn't crack a smile. In fact, she looked like she was looking down on her father. But arguing back would just invite more ridicule, and I didn't want to talk any further. That's when my husband and son arrived. Sorry to keep you waiting. My husband was in a crisp white shirt and a high-end suit, looking as handsome as ever. My son was dressed in a very modern style, but no less handsome. Wait, what? You're remarrying? So that's it, you can't have kids, so you're remarrying someone who already has them? I ignored his comment and turned to my husband. You're early. Yeah, the patient's condition has stabilized. I've left the rest to the team. Is that okay? Yeah, if anything happens, they'll call me. So, you were talking to someone just now? Oh, you saw? I saw you talking as I walked over. I was wondering who you were talking to with Ken. While I was talking to my husband, John and his wife Sabrina were whispering to each other. That's her new partner, right? Isn't that her husband? From the looks of it, he seems to be a doctor. Wait, she's married? Seems like it. Then, that young man is her husband's son? Their imaginations seem to be running wild. Is this person someone you know? Yes, my ex-husband from 18 years ago. Ah, the ex-husband with fertility issues.
Who's infertile? The infertile one is that woman.
I see, someone who doesn't know how to speak properly. And that girl? Seems to be his daughter. Ah, the child who was in the womb when you split? Yes, that's her. I see, well, that's impressive. What's impressive? Knowing she's not your own child but raising her as if she were. Not many people would do that. I respect that, it's quite something.
What? What are you talking about? This child is mine.
Ah, publicly, that's what you'd say. But you don't have the means to have children, right? That's why you couldn't have them.
What? Why wouldn't I have the means? That's ridiculous.
Really? My wife is capable of having children, but when she was with you, nothing happened. That suggests the problem was with you. So, you don't have the means. I thought it was admirable you're raising her, even though she's not your own. And no offense, but you and your wife don't look well off. You're wrong to say that. They said they came here to celebrate their daughter's college admission with family at a conveyor belt sushi place. Celebrating at conveyor belt sushi? That's a tough one. That's unfortunate for the daughter. Who are you, being so rude all this time? I'm her husband. You got married? You just assumed I couldn't get married, so I never corrected you. So, that kid is your husband's stepchild? No, he's my son.
Lies. How can that be?
Like my husband just said, there was never anything wrong with me. When did this happen? Right after we divorced. What? Right after we divorced means he's my child? Stop joking. He was conceived after the divorce. He's definitely my husband's child.
It's impossible to happen right after the divorce.
After the divorce, my husband was there for me when I was just crying all the time. His kindness moved me, and we decided to marry. But since there is a minimum statutory 6-month waiting period, we waited to register our marriage. By that time, I was already pregnant with his child. That can't be. You were pregnant with my child when we divorced? No.
You might want to believe that, but that's not the case at all. Besides, someone like you, who's infertile, couldn't possibly father a child. Why am I infertile?
Because I was proven to be capable of having children when I underwent fertility testing. I told you to get tested too, but you were too scared to do it. That means the problem was with you, right?
That's ridiculous.
My son was admitted to Harvard this year. If he really were your son, there's no way he'd get into Harvard, considering how much you hate studying.
What are you talking about? My daughter got into college A.
Oh, is that so?
Why laugh at college A? It's a respectable college too. The academic standard of college A is quite low. It's practically a college where writing your name is enough to get admitted.
Ah, let me introduce you to my son, a future Harvard student. That's impossible. But it's good enough that she got in. If it were really your genes, she wouldn't even be able to get into that. You can't even understand middle school problems. That's going too far.
I'm glad I'm my dad's kid. Don't make fun of me.
I'll be mocked if I'm mocked. You've made fun of me enough. The me who wouldn't fight back was only when I was weak. I'm different from who I was back then. It's only natural to talk back.
What kind of woman has she become? And you, marrying such a woman?
Well, I'm thankful you left her. We're off to celebrate our son's direct admission to Harvard at a fancy restaurant now.
A fancy restaurant?
Of course, it's a celebration. We want it to be memorable, right? Don't you feel sorry celebrating at a conveyor belt sushi place?
Shut up. Eating anywhere is fine as long as it's with family.
Your husband is really a doctor? Yes, exactly. Thanks to you taking John away, I met him. He destroyed my mental health, but without that, I wouldn't be where I am today. How? Where did you meet him? He works at a mental health clinic. I was his patient. I hated you two so much back then, but now, thanks to my husband, I can see that the past led to my present. We're financially comfortable and extremely happy. I'm truly grateful you left. She looks so happy now. You're lucky too. Accepting another man's child as your own, caring for her so much. It's rare to find a man who's been deceived for so long without realizing.
This child is mine.
Believing that so firmly, you're a great person. It's remarkable, considering how much they don't resemble you, that you've never doubted it.
Doubt? This child is mine. Made from my genes. You're impressive for considering your husband's child as your own.
Unfortunately, as I said before, you still don't get it. This child was conceived after I left you, with my husband. He's made from my husband's and my genes. There's no doubt about it. After all, he resembles both of us.
My daughter too. She resembles me.
John looked at his daughter, but his words faltered. It seems his feelings got in the way, even though he wanted to assert they resembled each other. It's about time. Oh, really? I thought we had more time before our reservation. Well, I don't think we'll meet again, so take care.
Mom, look. I bought this while we were waiting.
Oh, the jacket you've wanted for $2,000. Well, it's a celebration, after all. A $2,000 jacket, just like that.
Have a pleasant evening. Let's go.
As we proudly walked away, Sabrina's voice could be heard.
What was that? I stole you from her, then she remarries a doctor, dines at fancy restaurants, and buys a $2,000 jacket for a college admission celebration, saying it can't be helped with a laugh? We can't even afford a $200 coat.
Oh dear.
I should have never married you. Maybe I could have married a doctor too if I hadn't chosen you. Why did I choose you? What a mistake. Hey, Sabrina. It's our daughter's celebration today. Quiet. I'm not in the mood. They're going to a fancy place, and why are we at a conveyor belt sushi? It's so frustrating.
Having been able to talk back, I felt refreshed for the first time in 18 years and celebrated in more ways than one. Well, I'll never see them again, and there won't be any contact, so that's okay, right? That's what I thought, intending to keep that day as a vindicated memory. But then, about a week later, I got a call from John. Hey, it's been a week. Oh, you haven't forgotten my number? Yeah, seems I forgot to delete it. What do you want? I have a question. I thought I'd never hear from you again. What is it? That boy from the other day, is he really your child? Yes, he is. You weren't infertile? No, I wasn't. Then why couldn't we have a child when we were married? Because the issue was with you.
That's impossible.
Then why haven't you had a second child with her? You only have one child yourself. I chose to have only one child. I wanted all my love to go to just one child. But John, you said you wanted at least 3. Aren't you trying to make more? Or was your love for children a lie? No, I love kids. I've tried to have more. Trying but not succeeding? That means something, doesn't it? That's ridiculous. Are you sure that child is yours? She has to be my child. Even though she doesn't resemble you at all? That's. You could always get a test. That would clear everything up. After all, cuckoldry is a thing in this world. Cuckoldry? Yes. Maybe the child is someone else's. No way. If you're getting anxious, you should check. Knowing the truth and accepting it is better, right? Then everything will be clear. Yeah. Scared, huh? After all you said to me. Too scared to face the truth?
No way. My daughter is mine. There can't be any mistake.
Then you shouldn't have anything to worry about. Yeah, but I'm quite busy, even as a stay-at-home mom. I don't have time to deal with John anymore. Bye. 2 weeks passed. I thought I wouldn't hear from him again. But it seems he had no one else to turn to, so he contacted me again. Sounding utterly defeated. I was actually infertile. My sperm, none. So, it wasn't my fault, as I said. After all you accused me of. Yeah, it seems so. I can't have children. If you had gotten tested earlier, I wouldn't have had to endure all that. But thanks to that, I met my husband and even had a child. But I thought maybe the child could be mine. That's impossible.
Yeah, but it's not something you can just accept easily.
Yes, you are a weak man. So, I got a DNA test done. And? She wasn't my child. I knew that. Without sperm, there couldn't be a child. So, I asked my wife if it's really not my child. Even after all this time, she said that wasn't true. But it's impossible, so I showed her the DNA test results. Then she said, "You went that far." When I pressed her, she admitted she had been seeing someone else at the time. She got pregnant, but when she told him, he ran away, so she said the child was mine because I wanted one. A spectacular case of cuckoldry. Yeah. I was spectacularly duped. But it's okay, isn't it? You've been happy thinking she was your own. It was fine not knowing the truth until now. But now that I know. So what? Now that I know the truth, I can't see her as my daughter anymore. I've been raising a child who isn't even mine as if she were. That's okay. You've raised her lovingly and she's turned out beautiful. Just keep being a family as if nothing happened. Aren't you just happy to have been a parent? No, I wanted a child of my own genes. If she was of your genes, she wouldn't have turned out so beautiful. Shouldn't you be thankful to your wife?
If she was my own, she would have definitely been cute.
Look in the mirror before you say that. I'm getting a divorce. What? I've decided to divorce. I've been betrayed by my wife. How can I forgive this? Wait a minute. Getting a divorce now is absurd. You betrayed me by having an affair. Even if she had another man, if you're happy now, isn't that enough?
No, it's not okay. I can't forgive her betrayal. How selfish. Say whatever you want. I've decided to divorce. Being made to raise a child that isn't mine? I can't accept that. I'll never forgive her.
Listening to him, I felt it was all so ridiculous and said, "Do whatever you like," and hung up. I didn't need him to report this to me. Feeling it had nothing to do with me. However, John didn't seem to think it had nothing to do with me. After that, there was no contact for a while, so I thought it was over, but 6 months later, John contacted me. I got divorced. When I tapped on the message from John, that was all it said. I accidentally read it. Divorce was his decision. I had nothing to say about it. I didn't want to read that message. Because it felt like it would involve me in more trouble. As soon as I read the message, he didn't waste any time calling me. Why is he calling me? I thought that, but the persistent ringing made it clear I couldn't just ignore it. So I pressed the call button. "Kelly, can you lend me some money?" I could tell he was practically bowing over the phone. We've been divorced for 18 years, you know? Why would I lend you money now? That's because, after the divorce, I was demanded to pay alimony and child support. Why? I don't understand why you would have to pay alimony. I don't get it either. I thought my ex-wife was to blame, but she says since I acted as a father for 18 years, even if the child was someone else's, that makes me the father no matter what. And since I wanted the divorce, she says it's only right that she demands alimony. I can kind of see her point. I don't have any savings to begin with. And she knows that but still demands such things. What a terrible woman. Huh. But I thought it was inevitable, so I borrowed money to pay. I see. Then, I was demanded to pay child support. Well, that's only natural. Why? The child isn't even mine, why should I have to pay child support? Because the child was born during your marriage and you registered her as your daughter, didn't you? That means, legally, she's your child. I just can't accept that. Whether you accept it or not, that's the law, isn't it? What a mess. Every night I'm bothered by this, I feel like I'm losing my mind. That sounds tough. So, I figured it'd be easier just to agree to the divorce. Well, if that's what you decided, then it's fine, right? Yeah, that's the thing. Now, I have to pay for college expenses every month. College A is private, so tuition must be high, right? Exactly. I have to pay off my debt, and on top of that, college expenses? I've been kicked out of my house, with nowhere to live. She doesn't care about me at all. That's tough. You see? If I had some money, at least I could rent an apartment, but I don't even have the money to rent one, so now I'm staying in an internet cafe. So, can you lend me some money? I see. You have a wealthy husband, don't you? Can afford to buy your child a jacket that costs $2,000? So, lending a little to your ex-husband like me wouldn't hurt, right? What are you talking about? Our relationship is just by chance after 18 years. I have no obligation to do anything for you.
Don't say that, help me out. I'm really in trouble.
No way.
Do you think my husband would find it amusing if I lent you money? It could even put my marriage at risk. You made your bed, now lie in it. Don't be like that. Am I supposed to just suffer and die in this situation? I don't care, honestly. I don't have any fond memories of being loved by you. If anything, I feel like you're getting what you deserve. Don't say that, come on, please.
John kept begging for help, but since I had no intention of assisting him, I blocked him. I wondered what happened to him after that, but decided it wasn't worth my concern. Then, about 3 months later, I received a call from John's ex-wife. When I asked how she got my number, she said she took it from John's phone before they separated. Thinking about her persistence, the content of her call was rather pitiful. You're hiding my husband, aren't you? Why would I need to hide him? I have no lingering feelings for such a man, nor do I see any benefit in hiding him.
He hasn't paid child support. He has nowhere else to go, so he must have turned to you.
She hit the nail on the head. He did come to me, but I refused to lend him any money. I don't know what happened after that. Is that true? I wanted to yell that I didn't care, but there was no point. I just repeated that I didn't know anything, and she ended the call, saying that she is going to find him and make him pay the child support. With her determination, she likely did just that. But since then, I've heard nothing more about John, so who knows what became of him. He could very well be slaving away somewhere. Truly, what goes around comes around. As for me, my son is thriving in college. Lately, my husband and I have been enjoying dates together, further savoring our happiness.
I truly believe that divorcing back then led me to my current happiness. Yvonne, I know the one who's most devastated by Tristan's passing is you. I'll do anything I can to help. So please, don't bottle it all up.
Tom said, pulling me into a comforting embrace with a look of sympathy. Anyone would think he was a husband trying to console his grieving wife. But I forcefully shrugged off his hand and glared at him.
You'll do anything? Then go to hell.
My unexpected response left Tom and my in-laws shocked and bewildered.
What's wrong, Yvonne? Please, calm down.
Anna, Tristan's wife, said with concern, but I kept my glare fixed on Tom. This was 13 days after my brother Tristan had died. Today, we had gathered at my in-laws' house to deal with the administrative and inheritance matters following my brother's death. Since my parents were no longer around, it was decided that Anna would join us in these discussions at my in-laws. My brother had left this world at the young age of 24. However, I knew the real reason behind his death, a reason Tom believed I could not possibly know. That's probably why he could so carelessly say he'd do anything. If he could do anything, my only wish would be for him to go to hell. If he could do anything, my only wish would be for him to go to hell. Better yet, take my brother's place in the afterlife. I told him to go to hell because I knew his true nature. Tom couldn't hide his disturbance from the words hurled at him. The in-laws looked at me with concern and confusion. Breaking the silence, my mother-in-law gently asked,
"Are you okay? I understand you're grieving, but saying go to hell is unlike you, Yvonne. Is something the matter?"
Before I could respond, Tom quickly interjected, trying to prevent me from speaking.
Yvonne is just distraught because she's lost her only remaining family member to this world. It's understandable.
Despite not knowing the real reason I was crying, Tom played the part of a considerate husband, which only made my feelings towards him grow colder. On the other hand, Anna said, "It's natural to be shocked." Yvonne was like a parent to Tristan, trying to support me. Despite potentially being in shock from losing her own husband, Anna remains composed enough to show concern for others, unlike me. Tom and the in-laws are all nodding in agreement with her words. Just like Anna said, my parents passed away early on. At the time, I was a senior in high school and Tristan, 7 years my junior, was still in elementary school. From that day on, without any adults to rely on, we only had each other to lean on for support. It was by sheer coincidence that Tristan ended up working at the same company as my husband, Tom, after graduating from college, where Tom became his boss. Since Tristan was Tom's brother-in-law, Tom took it upon himself to look after him, especially when he was a new employee. Tom, being the so-called elite, had Tristan, who was said to be on a fast track to success, accompany him to client meetings, proudly introducing him as my talented brother-in-law. Tristan was indeed brilliant, and Tom favored him for that. Just 2 weeks ago, Tristan had come to visit our in-laws with Tom, and now, suddenly, he's gone.
The loss of your brother, who you've supported and lived with just the two for so long, must be heartbreaking. And Anna, becoming a widow so suddenly, it's just tragic. Remember, if there's anything we can do, you both can always count on us,"
said my kind in-laws, showing concern for both me and Anna, who had lost her husband. Anna thanked them and put her hand on her chest in gratitude. Tom looked on with satisfaction at the three of us. Watching Tom's behavior, I just wanted to end this charade as soon as possible. The nice family act is over here.
"I want to clear my brother's name right here,"
I announced, surprising everyone present, including my in-laws and Tom. It was the perfect opportunity with all the relevant parties gathered. Ignoring their puzzled looks, I continued.
"My brother had a best friend. Before he passed, he entrusted him with a letter addressed to me."
As I took out a letter from my bag, Tom's face turned anxious, probably curious about what was written. To him, this must feel like an invitation to hell. Without paying attention to Tom's visible unease, I read the letter as calmly as possible, while Tom visibly paled as I went on. The room erupted into chaos upon hearing its contents. The letter began with an apology from Tristan to me and revealed several truths he had been too afraid to share. Those truths filled 3 pages.
"Dear sister, I'm truly sorry for not consulting you sooner. Not knowing what to do, and not wanting to burden you, I kept silent. I was being threatened by Tom, my boss and brother-in-law, and was paying him money."
As I read that far, Tom interrupted, exclaiming, "That's a lie. None of that ever happened." He reached out in a panic, trying to snatch the letter from me, but I brushed him off. The in-laws were clearly confused. They looked at each other with disbelief, listening to the contents of the letter being read.
Could it be? Tom threatening Tristan? Could there be some mistake?
It was only natural for the in-laws to doubt such a claim. Even I couldn't believe it at first. Especially since Tristan had visited their home with Tom just 2 weeks ago.
The last time we saw him, Tristan seemed just as usual, nothing seemed out of the ordinary. I thought so too.
I then shared what Tristan's best friend had told me.
Tom used his position as a boss to threaten my brother. He said things like, "If you defy me, I'll demote you," or "With just one word from me, you could be fired just like that." Tristan knew how much I struggled with money and, having faced hardships himself, the threat of losing his job was significant.
When the in-laws looked at Tom, he shook his head as if to say he knew nothing about it. Watching this, my father-in-law hesitantly voiced his thoughts.
It's hard to believe Tom would threaten Tristan. If Tristan was as talented as he was, he wouldn't have had trouble finding another job. He could have gathered evidence and taken it to the company or the appropriate authorities. The idea that he would succumb to such threats doesn't seem very convincing. Tom also made it seem like he was holding me hostage with his words. He appealed to Tristan's emotions by asking if he wanted to destroy my happiness and relief from financial struggles, or warned him about the unknown consequences I might face if he rebelled. He cornered my kind brother with various threats, saying, "As long as you keep quiet, your sister will remain happy and unaware of any of this."
My gentle brother, not wanting to worry me, bore it all alone and endured in silence. If my caring brother thought my hard-won peaceful life would be ruined, he would naturally hesitate. If the roles were reversed, I would think it was better for me to suffer alone too. Moreover, if your brother-in-law is also your boss, angering him could affect your own family. That must have been why Tristan couldn't say anything. In fact, Tristan had been particularly busy with work in the past few months, often coming home on the last train. It's possible he was already facing some form of harassment at work. The cause of Tristan's death was overwork, but it was Tom who drove him to it. Tristan must have been desperately struggling every day, both physically and mentally. Realizing how much my brother suffered alone makes me unable to forgive myself for not noticing. I didn't do any of that. Where's the evidence, anyway? Tristan's no longer here. There's no way to prove the letter's truth. Tom still tried to deny the contents of the letter with a calm demeanor. The in-laws, too, seemed unable to imagine their son doing such things, given the severity of the allegations in the letter.
I do have evidence.
I pulled out a voice recorder I had prepared in my bag along with the letter. When I played it, the conversation between Tom and Tristan was clearly audible. Tom's voice was unlike any I had ever heard from him before. It was harsh, intimidating, and full of insults, making me want to cover my ears. There were also sounds of something hitting a desk and other noises like things colliding, and faintly, what seemed like small cries of pain. The recording was even more vivid and harrowing than what was written in the letter. The thought of my dear brother being subjected to such verbal abuse was heart-wrenching. I barely managed to hold back tears while listening. And I felt ashamed for having spent time with Tom, oblivious to all this. I had thought I understood Tristan, having spent so much time together.
When did you start wiretapping?
Tom immediately focused on the fact that he had been recorded. This man, thinking only of protecting himself, seemed to have nothing else on his mind.
Is that really the first thing you have to say after hearing this? You really are the worst kind of person. I was foolish not to see it. This voice recorder was given to me by Tristan's best friend, along with the letter.
Tristan, unable to confide in me, had turned to his best friend. Following his advice, Tristan had been gathering evidence. The in-laws were shocked, to say the least, hearing their son's voice on the recorder. No wonder. The menacing tone and content of the conversation were unimaginably cruel, akin to something you'd expect from a criminal organization, a far cry from the Tom they knew.
What in the world made you do something like this?
My father-in-law asked Tom, his voice shaking, but Tom refused to admit anything.
That might sound like me, but it's not. Think about it. I have a high-ranking position in a top-tier company. I earn far more than most of my peers, and thanks to that, Yvonne has been able to live comfortably. Why would I need to threaten a subordinate for money when I'm not struggling financially?
It made sense, in a way. Tom's income was sufficient for us to live comfortably without me having to work. Thanks to his earnings, we could afford a condo and even take annual trips abroad with the in-laws. Even if we were to have children and our family grew, we could maintain a comfortable lifestyle on Tom's salary alone. It seemed illogical for him to resort to blackmail for money. That's when I decided to reveal another fact. Despite all your earnings, you were short on money, weren't you? I looked towards Anna, who had been silently observing everything unfold. Anna looked uncomfortable, her eyes darting around.
I've already investigated that you and Anna were having an affair. You needed the money to lavish on Anna. It's ironic, isn't it? The money he was extorted being spent on his own wife. The affair with Anna?
My father-in-law clenched his fists, looking like he was about to hit Tom. Tom, realizing his affair was exposed, widened his eyes in shock. Then, looking desperately at Anna for help, she awkwardly averted her gaze, saying nothing. It turns out the concern Anna showed me today was all a lie. Tristan had suspected Anna's extravagant spending and had a detective investigate her for infidelity. In his letter, Tristan wrote that he had hidden the investigation report in the house. Relying on the letter, I found and retrieved the report. I showed it to the in-laws. They flipped through the report with trembling hands.
You both. An affair with your brother-in-law's wife. Not just betraying Yvonne, but such a betrayal.
The in-laws were furious to learn about Tom and Anna's affair. Any remaining affection they had for their son seemed to have vanished completely. All the kind words Tom had said, like "I'll do anything I can," and his concern that I was shocked and distressed, turned out to be just an act, deepening my disappointment.
Anna, what were you thinking? And with your brother-in-law, of all people. Tristan was working hard for you, wasn't he, despite his frail health? To betray him for this.
Even when confronted harshly by my mother-in-law, Anna was unfazed, replying as if it were someone else's problem. I had no idea Tom was threatening my husband. She unabashedly continued.
But let me make it clear, it was your son who kept insisting. I refused many times, but Tom wanted to attract my attention by bringing me luxury items and cash. I never said I wanted any of it.
Anna boldly retorted to my father-in-law, with Tom cutting in.
Don't lie. Anna, you always said Tristan's earnings were all for yourself. You were happy to accept the luxury items I bought for you.
As Tom and Anna started arguing among themselves, I reiterated.
I don't care about any of your excuses. You said you'd do anything, right? Then go to hell. For Tristan.
Despite the evidence of extortion, Tom and Anna continued to deny their responsibility for Tristan's death, insisting it wasn't their fault.
I get it. You both refuse to admit any guilt. But rest assured, you will face the consequences.
With that, I made a phone call to the person. It was the person who had been advising Tristan and helping him out, his best friend. The best friend had previously given his business card to the in-laws.
I'm a lawyer. Tristan was my close friend, and he confided in me about various matters.
The in-laws looked at the business card they were handed, examining it. Hearing that he was a lawyer, Tom and Anna looked panicked.
I have formally been instructed by Yvonne to prepare to sue Tom and Anna. Sue us? But it was all Tom's doing. It's because you always wanted luxury items that were in this mess. You were the one who cozied up to me because I have more money than Tristan.
The blame game between Anna and Tom reignited, showcasing their foolishness. I really think they were two idiots. Both seemed incapable of seeing their own faults, only focusing on themselves. If they had admitted their wrongdoings and apologized sooner, maybe things could have been slightly better. Tom and Anna continued to embarrass themselves, only succeeding in raising everyone's anger. It seemed pointless to say anything more to them. Looking them straight in the eyes, I said,
I will fight this thoroughly since we have evidence of you extorting money and having an affair.
Tom and Anna looked like they wanted to say something, but they fell silent when I firmly stated my position.
I cannot forgive you for deceiving not only Tristan but also Yvonne and your family. Do you even understand what you have done?
Tom and Anna couldn't respond and finally quieted down. Later, Tom and Anna were held accountable for their actions. My divorce from Tom was finalized. During the divorce, Tristan's best friend helped me claim alimony and damages from both Tom and Anna. After that gathering, I immediately moved out and into a new apartment. I also secured a job, and with the divorce finalized, I could finally start a new life. The in-laws disowned Tom and cut all ties with him. At Tom's company, his actions of extorting money from subordinates and having an affair became known, resulting in his dismissal. Tom and Anna had fallen into their own hell. But I don't think this has avenged Tristan's regrets. Still, for me, it marked a necessary closure to move forward. I expressed my gratitude to the in-laws who believed in me and Tristan's best friend who supported me. Then, the best friend said, Tristan had entrusted me with another letter for you, and handed it over. The letter was filled with Tristan's gratitude for everything since our parents passed away, and his wish for me to find happiness. Tears I thought had dried up started flowing again, unstoppable. If only I had noticed my brother's troubles, maybe none of this would have happened. No matter how much I regret it now, it's something that can't be undone. The hardships weren't mine alone. After our parents passed away, my brother faced them too. He was just starting out as an adult. He was still young, and surely, both his work and personal life had many joys awaiting him. Things he hadn't been able to do yet should have been possible. As I read the letter, tears of regret started to overflow again. It was because of my brother that I managed to keep going up until now. I'm the one who should be grateful. Holding the letter, I thanked him over and over again in my heart.